We've a long history in financial services. We also have so much FDI that came into the country over the years and so much technological skills that were developed out of that. And this is about putting those two sets of skills together and, if you like, building on that potential and the unique position that Ireland has held in that scenario for the last number of years, and that we can build on that into the future. I suppose it couldn't, in the last couple of weeks, you have to look at the scenario where that confidence has been very much shaken by what has happened with job losses and with the cryptocurrency markets, for instance. And it did shake people's confidence in terms of the jobs being lost. But I suppose the other side of it is, it also, yet again, is another opportunity. Because here in Ireland, I think we have to look at how we can build a more resilient indigenous fintech sector. How we can take the knowledge that was developed from the FDI that came into the country and work with the, we'll say, the educational bodies and the stakeholders in the sector to develop our own industry. Our own industry, an Irish industry, will be more resilient. It'll have a greater multiplier in the economy. And those start-up businesses, the value in them will be here in Ireland. It won't be in California. And if we can do that, we won't be at the vagaries of a decision in California where someone decides, some multinational decides to cut jobs. We will have our own indigenous industry here in Ireland. And if you look at the situation, while we've had job losses, the amount of companies that talk to me and tell me that they have a massive need for workers and they can't get those workers. So I've no doubt people who may feel under pressure at the moment in terms of the job security, there's any amount of alternative jobs out there and alternative opportunities.
Many of the fintechs we're seeing in Ireland are payment and e-money institutions. Uptake of digital finance is high amongst the population here in Ireland, with over 2/3 of Irish adults using non-cash payments regularly. And there is strong support from national authorities as well. The Irish government is embracing fintech as part of its recently updated Ireland for Finance strategy. And this includes plans to grow areas like insurtech, regtech, artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and linking into the work of the EU Digital Finance Strategy. And the Central Bank of Ireland is also supporting this sector, its innovation hub providing a single point of contact for stakeholders on all things fintech. Ireland as a whole can benefit from the single market for digital finance, the one that we're building and rolling out. And here the regions, as recognised in the Ireland for Finance strategy, are also important. Companies along the M1 corridor are rooted in the local communities, but they're also part of a single market of nearly 450 million people and millions of businesses. And the FinTech corridor is an opportunity to really link the local and the European, using our common laws and regulations to scale up and to offer services far from home just as easily as close to home. So Ireland is and has a great environment for innovation. It is well positioned to be a leader in FinTech. And it is initiatives like the FinTech corridor that will help develop fintechs in the region, strongly rooted in the local communities.
I'll move straight over to our first speaker, which is Peter Oakes. I know Peter has a little bit hoarse today, so he's going to use the handheld mic in order to get as much as possible. Peter's background is Peter set up FinTech Ireland in, I think it was 2013. And he has a long background in the fintech sector, and he probably is one person that I've turned to that can give a great overview of the industry as a whole. And I'll leave it over to Peter to explain further his own background. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So listen, I apologise about my voice, and if you can't hear me down the back, I'll yell up. I'll yell, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay. My background originally was as a central banker and a regulator, and now I work in fintech. So we might just jump to a slide there which talks about what some facts and figures about Ireland. Yeah, this is great. Ireland attracts a lot of fintech business because there's a common law legal system, English first language in terms of business, and it's considered to be business friendly. Alongside our neighbours there in the UK. I won't steal the thunder of other speakers that will talk about what's going on, but we have around about 10,000 registered financial services companies in Ireland. I'll show you a map in a minute, and on that map you'll see 265 indigenous fintech companies, many of which are along this corridor. And we have another 120 odd international fintech companies based here in Ireland. And the Commissioner and Com discussed regulatory technology. RegTech is the second biggest sector in fintech in Ireland. So it's a tremendous area to get interested in and focused on. So technology which solves problems like regulatory technology is where we probably should be. We have a massive international funds services industry. We employ 52,000 plus people in international financial services directly in Ireland. About 15% of those work in financial technology. So that's around about 7,000 to 8,000. We have another 50,000 people who work in domestic financial services firms that are looking at setting up fintech operations. And the last thing I'd say is that one of the key attractions for Ireland, again, is this. If you're an Australian company, where I come from, if you're an American company or a Chinese company, Latin American, South American, and you want to conquer the continent of Europe with your fintech idea, you can't do it from just being in a member state alone or in the UK alone. So Ireland has a fantastic opportunity to partner with the UK to bring these businesses into Ireland. And on the UK point of view, we have Northern Ireland just up the road here. So this fantastic triangle of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and forgive me for saying this, mainland UK.
Next up, we've Denise Delaney from the Central Bank. And in fairness, I think anyone who talks in fintech at all, the Central Bank always is someone that, well, for many sectors in it anyway, they'll have to engage with the Central Bank. And Denise is responsible for developing and coordinating innovation within the Central Bank, and particularly the Innovation Hub. And maybe, Denise, you'd speak a little bit towards how companies can engage with yourselves.
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for inviting us here today. Actually, we were back last in Dundalk in October 2020. The Innovation Hub was at the Incubation Centre in Dundalk IT. We wanted it to be in person, but obviously COVID hit in 2020, so it's great to be here in person today. And I guess part of what we do at the Central Bank is we're trying to be open and engaged. You've heard a lot about regulation today. You've heard a lot about industry today, and of course about consumers today. So we want to talk and listen. Most importantly, Commissioner McGuinness said that, listen to what each of the industry, consumers and other stakeholders are saying to us. So that's partly why we come to events like this today, and I hope to catch up with some of you after the panels. So why does innovation matter to a central bank or financial regulator? Well, simply because the environment in which we're operating is evolving and changing because of technological innovation, both internally ourselves, how we work, how we supervise, but also the types of firms that are coming to us. There's vast changes there. The regulatory environment, so we've taken on new regulatory mandates because, as the Commissioner mentioned, there's new regulation coming from Europe and so on. And then from the traditional firms, they're changing their business models too, and consumer behaviour is changing, so how we protect consumers changes in line with that. And we currently have a consultation paper open at the moment on consumer protection, so I would encourage you all as consumers to please have a look at that. There's a very simple digital survey to complete. So back in 2018 we established our Innovation Hub because when we were looking at what was happening in innovation, we saw that a lot of it was happening outside of the regulatory perimeter. We have lots of engagements with regulated entities. Anyone who's regulated knows that there's a lot of engagement with us. But we weren't talking to firms who we don't regulate because we didn't have that regulatory relationship. And we thought about, well, how do we get to talk to them? Because what the innovations that were being created in those fintechs, big, small, Irish, global, European, was eventually going to become relevant to the financial system, was going to impact and change the financial system. So we wanted to learn about it at an early stage, and an Innovation Hub was a way of having that very early discussion.
Joe has been recently appointed CEO of Revolut Europe, and he's a member of the Central Bank European Retail Payments Group, and he's 25 years experience working in Ulster Bank, and I think Permanent TSB, I think it is as well. And so Joe, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Colin. So thank you very much for inviting me here today, and it's great to meet you all. And for those of you I haven't met, or if you haven't heard someone from Revolut speak before, I might tell you just a few headlines about us. Maybe less needed in some cases in Ireland than in other countries, given the nature of the popularity. We're only around 7 years. We launched in Ireland and the UK in 2015, and very successfully now have passported across Europe. And just this week announced a new milestone of 25 million customers globally, but most of that is in Europe and the UK. So I'm CEO of the Europe business, which now, I suppose, as a perimeter excludes the UK customer base. The UK is where our headquarters is. And our ambition is to be a global financial super app. You might wonder what that means. And effectively, the ambition is to do things to do with your consumer money needs 10 times better than you're used to. And hopefully some of you, if you are a customer, you feel like Revolut is 10 times better. That's the ambition. And a super app means, again, as you'll see some of the things we've put into the app, services beyond a traditional bank service. So things like lifestyle-related matters like booking holidays, doing your shopping, getting you cash back and discounts and stuff like that. Needless to say, we're delighted with our success in Ireland, which is in excess, really, in terms of our reach and penetration of any other country. So people talk about Revolut becoming a verb, and people saying, I'll rev you for it in Ireland. That's not a thing that's happening anywhere else yet. So it's kind of a unique success story for us here. This year, as a result, we launched personal loans and a buy now, pay later proposition in Ireland. We hope to launch a credit card soon, and then in the new year we'll launch local IBANs, or IE IBANs, which will make, the account more usable for Irish customers. So that's sort of the plan. We are also extending those services to businesses. So that's, we want to bring the same approach and benefit Irish, in particular SMEs, as we've done for consumers. So why is Revolut here? What was attractive about coming and setting up here? It's kind of the obvious things Peter mentioned. English speaking, common law jurisdiction inside the European Union. The level of talent, and of course Ireland has long accepted story that we've built our success as an economy based on our investment in education going back for many years. I think in more recent years the government has doubled down with a portfolio at government level for further education, but also the investment in the skill nets. And if you're a startup here, the same as a company like us who is looking to invest in, you're looking for a finished article person you can employ who's got the right skills to work in your business. And I think that's where all that investment comes to play. If we're under pressure, we want to start a business and move fast, we need to hire an experienced person who's done the job before. And I think that's probably the greatest way that you can see these two hubs we have in Ireland around. You have a big tech hub and you have a big financial services centre, and they literally come together as fin and tech. And you need both of those skills to run a fintech business.
We'll move quickly on because just time is pushing on a little bit to Karen Cullen from the Department of Finance. Karen is supporting Minister Sean Fleming in the development of the Ireland for Finance strategy, and she also was heavily involved in the financial services aspect of Ireland's presidency during 2013. Karen.
Thanks, Colin, Hilary and the Fintech Corridor for the invitation to join your panel here today. We were talking earlier about the hotel here, and the last time I was in this hotel, Garth Brooks was in the charts. I was a student in UCD, so that gives you a clue, I think, as to how old I am. So then there was a nightclub in this hotel, so it's interesting to see this hotel in daylight. I'm told the nightclub is gone, and there's a gym here now, which goes to show you the different priorities maybe of the younger people. But I had some great times in this hotel, I have to say, so it's great to be back. So this is kind of my home jurisdiction, my home region. I'm from Cavan, which is not far away. So I'll talk a little bit about the regions in a moment. And I did get the £5 from the bank on UCD campus, I have to say. And then, of course, I walked across the road and got £5 from the other bank. So I think that feature of Irish customers, we are very much multi-banked, and that was something that we talk about a lot in the department. So I think there's a lot of crossover between what the speakers are saying here today, which is great, which means my job is easier if there's a lot of coordination amongst all of the players, because that is what Ireland for Finance the government's enterprise strategy is all about. It's all about coordination, and that's part of my job. So it's a whole of government strategy for the development of the international financial services sector. As somebody mentioned earlier, it was recently updated by Minister of State Sean Fleming and launched in October. The term of the strategy was extended to 2026, and as Joe mentioned and Denise, the target under the strategy is to grow the jobs in the sector by an extra 5,000. So my job really involves orchestrating all of the relevant players, the enterprise agencies, Enterprise Ireland, the IDA, the relevant departments across government, and to interact with the private sector. The whole purpose is to create the right conditions to grow direct employment in the sector. The aim is to become the premier location to grow direct employment, premier location of choice for the international financial services. And with our foreign missions abroad, we try to bring our message to the international community.
So with that in mind, I wanted to ask Hilary Moran to speak on behalf of the Fintech Corridor and the wonderful work that has been done in relation to it over the last number of years. So Hilary.
Thank you very much, Colin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today to discuss the Fintech Corridor and to celebrate the building on Ireland's potential and the future of Fintech. So as Colin introduced, my name is Hilary Moran and I'm responsible for managing the Fintech Corridor. As a speaker at today's event, I am somewhat humbled by the quality of guests and delighted to see so many of our members and brand ambassadors here today. So the Fintech Corridor was established in 2020, a cross-border cluster working with multiple Fintech companies, academic institutions and development agencies along the Dublin to Belfast route. We focus on driving, developing, facilitating and promoting the region to start or expand in Fintech, and as a gateway for Fintech companies north and south on the island. The rise of Fintech-enabled economies are testament to its transformative capability and the role it could play in securing future economic growth, skilled employment and improved productivity as the world moves more and more towards a global digital economy. The Fintech Corridor recognises the maturation and opportunity Fintech presents and the synergistic benefits of connecting Dublin, Belfast and the wider region as we aim to strengthen SME growth through specific areas, to support early-stage innovation, startup activity and scaling of indigenous companies along with Fintech growth. The region has witnessed an influx of Fintech businesses located along the corridor, displaying the need to focus on economic development and emphasise the development of the regions and their clusters. Connectivity and accessibility is key to innovation and economic growth, along with industry mentoring, networking and matchmaking, knowledge sharing and education routes that allow industry the opportunity to tailor academic programmes and to address the skills shortages. Growth and development of the Fintech sector needs to be supported to bring together businesses, academic institutions and the other organisations to provide economic growth opportunities for the financial and technology sector in the region. Without organisations such as ourselves, industry, SMEs especially, will miss out on opportunities to grow and flourish in a supportive and collaborative atmosphere and to work with academic institutions to develop the skills required of that sector to grow employment and retain talent.
I was educated at Coláiste in Dundalk and I graduated from Dundalk Institute of Technology. So my involvement in this region is obviously very close to my heart, and everything that I do at PayPal and also what I do at the Fintech Corridor is heavily rooted around making sure that obviously we are embedded in the community. That is something that's very close to what PayPal do as an organisation. It's not lip service. If you read or listen to anything that Dan Schulman, President of PayPal, will say on his own global forums, the whole mission of PayPal, and this goes right back to a former, shall we say, employee of PayPal who came up earlier in conversation, Elon Musk. He is one of the founding members of PayPal, and the whole point of it being set up in the first place was to democratize financial services. But to be part of a democratic financial service, you have to have your local roots. And that's something that PayPal is very, very passionate about. It's absolutely not lip service. Other companies may say that they wish to do so, but PayPal is very embedded in that. So PayPal has been a supporter of the FinTech corridor since its inception. Emer Higgins, who is a member of Fine Gael, was one of those members of the business that got involved with it originally. And it was just very exciting, I suppose, when I got involved in it with Hillary at the time, when it was sort of really getting off the ground just before it was brought back down to earth again, thanks to COVID, when we wanted to do lots of events and get more involved in what we were doing. But, something we spoke about earlier around why business clustering is something that's really useful and important, and probably where the future lies in terms of how business operates in Ireland is using the avenue that we had with the FinTech corridor, and of course the weight of, I suppose, PayPal's brand. We were able to work and develop a course specifically for the use of not just our own, the employees at PayPal to gain skill, but it was for people in the region, because it was developed that way in order to bring that foreign direct investment weight to the community. And the course I'm speaking about is the blockchain course, which was mentioned earlier in the previous panel and spoken about by Mairead as well. The whole point of developing it that way was so that we could engage from the industry side in PayPal with obviously the network that we have at the FinTech corridor and the connection that we have with Dundalk Institute of Technology and other universities to help them understand where the skills gaps were, but also to enable the workforce for the future. DKIT here in Dundalk were hugely receptive to that whole partnership, because they would admit themselves that they had developed courses in the past which may or may not have been popular. And I mean, that's what a college and university should do. They should try and gauge where are the skills going to be for the future and try and come up with courses for that. But what they found useful from the engagement with ourselves and through the FinTech corridor was they could hear directly from industry where the gaps were right now and where we could add value to our business. And the reason why I say that is not everyone that works at PayPal or in a financial technology company comes from that background. They're not bankers, they're not software developers. A lot of people who are involved in the industry right now are people who are affected by restrictions over COVID. They got out of industry that they were involved with, whether it's sound engineering or they were chefs, they got taken out of their ability to do that role during COVID, and then may have moved into financial services or financial technology. So those people have come from a background that is not technical, and they wanted to get that level of additional skill. And that's what the blockchain course that we developed with DKIT enabled. It gave people access to getting those foundational skills without having to have the need of having gone through a degree or a diploma or having been involved in anything very technical before.
Jenny has been appointed as manager for technology and service division, or manager of the technology and service division, just recently in 2022, and she's worked with AI for over 20 years. So
there you go. That puts my age on the podium straight away. So Colin. So look, in Enterprise Ireland, for those of you who don't know what we do, we're very much about helping companies to start and to scale and to grow in international markets. And the international market growth is really important, because that's what creates the jobs back home here on the ground, puts boots on the ground. And we had some incredible stats from across our client base in 2021 after a really difficult COVID year, where they brought 31 billion spend back into the local economy. So it's really important, we have that balance between the FDI base and what we call the homegrown base. And of course, we're very proud of our FDI footprint here in Ireland as well. That combined with our indigenous companies, it gives us that really unique position in Europe. But just honing in on the FinTech piece today, which of course is what we're all here to talk about. We see every day in Enterprise Ireland just how incredibly resilient, innovative and competitive our fintech companies are. In my portfolio, we've about 1,400 companies across the technology and services division. About 250 of those companies are in the fintech and financial services space. Real strengths in reg tech, insure tech, payments, in software and services, and then in those underlying softwares and technology that I guess are what you call sector agnostic and are applicable in fintech. I think just to share a few stories with you, I was in Singapore 2 weeks ago, actually maybe 3 weeks ago now, at this stage with the Taoiseach at the Fintech Festival, an absolute minefield of innovation. You would go from one pavilion to another thinking this has to be the best thing I'm going to see here today, and you would go 200 metres down and something else would blow your mind. And at the show, we had an Irish pavilion with IDA with 11 of our client companies, and the pavilion was absolutely buzzing. And that's a testament to the interest that the international customers have in our companies and what they have to offer.
Brody of Ulster University, internationally recognised finance academic and chair of the financial technology at Ulster University. Daniel.
Great, thank you very much. So I've got a takeaway from today. The Commissioner said it and a lot of other of the speakers repeated it, and that is that the future of finance is digital. So let's just define fintech, because we've talked a lot about it, but the way that most people define it is some form of innovation. I think of it as the migration of the financial services to the internet. And that has a lot of implications. And those implications I'll come on to and what they mean for education. So those implications are that you've got big data. Therefore, the way that you process that data changes. You need programming code, you need data analytics. All these things were traditionally outside of the sphere of finance and are now pretty much encompassed in it. If I was speaking to someone entering the workforce today in finance, I would say, look, if you don't know programming, you don't know data analytics, certain types of statistics, don't bother, because you won't have a long-term future in the industry. So educationally, both in Northern Ireland and the Republic, the universities are recognizing this and essentially introducing into the curriculum these elements, so that the traditional element, whereby there's a theory behind finance, whereby you teach regulation. We also introduce these skills, which are needed in the workforce, alongside an understanding of the implications. As you move essentially the whole financial sector, which is between 20 to 30% of GDP, as you move that to the internet, what happens is you can change the very nature of what we call intermediation. Essentially, you have borrowers and savers in an economy who come together in a centralized way, and those borrowers and savers essentially generate the economic activity through the way that they are brought together by the financial sector. With the internet, we can bring diverse people, diverse groups, businesses together without the old bricks and mortar infrastructure. As a result, things are really fundamentally changing, and they're changing entire business models. We've already had mentioned today banking as a service. You don't need to run a bank to deliver individual types of banking services anymore. We've had open finance mentioned, or open banking. Third-party permissioned access to data. Your data is valuable. So let someone data mine it, let's create businesses around that, and we create whole new jobs for everyone. So we're educating the new students coming through, we the universities, and at the same time there's an upskilling, and SkillNet has been mentioned and so forth. That upskilling means that those people who don't have these skills, as with things like the blockchain course or whatever, we need to get it out to them, because essentially it's mission critical. If We want essentially the financial services in this island to be world-class, not to lose jobs to other jurisdictions that are better, faster than we are. So it's not nice to have, it's really critical to have the higher educational sector kicking in there.